Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this Q&A chat around the coronavirus vaccine trials and how it may eventually be distributed in Louisiana. I'm Jerry DiColo. I'm the city editor of the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate, and I am joined today by health reporter Emily Woodruff. Emily, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Jerry. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So in today's Times-Picayune and the Advocate and the Acadiana Advocate, Emily, you wrote a story following up on what was a pretty blockbuster announcement earlier this week from Pfizer, which is a pharmaceutical giant, who said that early trials of its coronavirus vaccine showed it was effective, and in fact, very effective. And so it's early stage trials, but this could put the vaccine on pace to be distributed so long as they get the federal approvals, at least to some frontline workers by the end of this year. So this was huge news. It sent stocks rising. It also raised a lot of questions from readers about how this will impact everyone in Louisiana and what specific plans there are for distributing this and other vaccines for the coronavirus once they're ready to hopefully get towards the end of this just awful pandemic that we've been going through. So lots of questions. You and I have tried to distill it down to a few of the big ones that are out there, and we're going to try and tackle that now. You ready to go?
Yes.
All right. So first thing, who's in charge of distributing vaccines in Louisiana, and what is that process starting to look like?
Yeah, so this is a huge undertaking for this virus to be effective. Millions of people just in the state will have to take it, or for this vaccine, excuse me. So the Louisiana Department of Health's Office of Public Health is leading this, but it's a huge effort that involves a lot of different teams. So the state's plan is 125 pages, which is, quite long, and just a few of those pages are dedicated to all the people who are helping it. So it's everyone from universities, hospitals, the Board of Nursing, the Nursing Home Association, pharmacies are going to be involved, independent pharmacies, CVS, Walgreens. It's just a huge operation that is going to involve a lot of people.
Right. So I think the idea is that on the federal level, there's Operation Warp Speed, which was getting money to pharmaceutical companies or starting to build out the manufacturing and sort of the broad distribution plans. But when it comes to you and me or anyone in Louisiana actually getting a dose of this vaccine from Pfizer or the others, it's up to each individual state.
Right. Yeah. So Operation Warp Speed is procuring these vaccines for states, distributing them based on the state's population size, and then each state has a plan that they've submitted to the CDC. And it's based on CDC guidelines, but there is room for each state to distribute this how they see fit.
Okay, so what's the timeline look like right now? I know there's a lot of stuff up in the air, but what are the basic outlines that we're working with here?
Yeah, so it's hard to plan when you don't know how many vaccines you're going to get, how much vaccine you're going to get. But it does look like for this first Pfizer vaccine, which looks like it will be the first to get approval from the FDA. I heard from an LDH official 2 days ago that they do expect it in the first half of December. So that does change, based on whatever else we learn. But that's when they're expecting it will arrive. So, possibly within a month. And then beyond that, things will unfold as the scientific process sort of takes place. So, an epidemiologist told me this week, you can probably expect for a healthy young person who is not an essential worker, so sort of the people in the very last phase of the state's plan to get the vaccine, would get it maybe 6 months after the first vaccine is distributed, and hopefully early December.
So that's talking like mid 2021 is what it's
right.
looking like right now.
I mean, I've heard April from some people, but it looks like sometime between April and June, a vaccine hopefully will be available for anyone to take.
Okay. I know your story said that there are still some very wide estimates in terms of how many doses Louisiana will actually receive, at least initially. And of course, again, with the caveat that the Pfizer results, while really promising, still need to go through federal approval over the next few weeks. So I think the thing to stress maybe now is that, unless you're a healthcare worker, you got a number of months left. But maybe we could go into detail on, after we've now established a little bit of the timeline, who gets it first and who's really deciding that? How does that ranked list get decided, and where does everyone seem to fall on it so far?
Yeah, so that's part of the state's plan, and they've consulted with a lot of people, academics, emergency planners, to put together a list of people a priority list. And this list is in 3 phases. So the very first doses they have decided will go to frontline healthcare workers. Those are people, in the emergency room, people who we know are seeing people with coronavirus, and they can't avoid it. They can't work from home. And so, that's for 2 reasons: because they are at higher risk because they see more people, and then also because it prevents a lot of infections if you give a vaccine to a healthcare worker, because we know that it can spread inside hospitals or nursing homes very quickly. So then the next one will go to nursing homes, and they think that will be the Moderna vaccine, which they expect to be approved after Pfizer. And they're using a CVS Walgreens partnership to distribute that.
And that's so those are 2 out of a dozen vaccines that are being developed right now, but with a few of them focused or probably going to be distributed first in the US.
Yeah, so there are 11 late stage phase 3 vaccines in trials right now. 6 of them the US has contracts for distribution with. So we hope that we can get a lot of them approved, that a lot of them will work. But they may have different effectiveness for different groups. So you want to make sure the vaccine you give to the nursing home patients and staff is effective among older people. So there's a lot that can change in this. But yeah, so that's all part of phase 1. And then the other people in phase 1 are people who keep our healthcare system functioning. So private clinics and doctors' offices and psychologists, law enforcement, corrections officers, food packaging workers, people over 65 with certain conditions. And that's all part of phase 1. And then we go to phase 2, which is essential workers. These are people who we know are getting coronavirus in higher numbers. So grocery store workers, people who work in transportation, teachers, postal workers, some government employees, people who really keep the economy functioning that also can't work from home. And at this point, if you have a pre-existing condition, one of those certain conditions, and you're at any age over 18, you'll be able to get it, not just over 65.
So if you have something that's been seen as a comorbidity, like you have diabetes, or you have heart disease or something like that, in the phase 2 trial, the phase 2 portion of this distribution, that's when you're going to be able to either go to your doctor or some other state-run facility and maybe be able to get one of the vaccines.
Right. Yes. Okay. So it's certain conditions, not just any pre-existing conditions, but those people will be able to get it at that point.
And then after that, it's the rest of us, or it's the broader population. It's, like you said, the 30-year-old that doesn't have any pre-existing conditions.
Works from home, or yeah. So that's phase 3 that people are predicting will happen between April and June, where anyone who wants one could get one.
I see. So, talk to me a little bit about the challenges of just distributing this vaccine. I mean, if you look at it globally, right, it's a massive billions of doses to every country, and trying to get it out as quickly as possible every country trying to do it, every government trying to do it. Then you focus down into the US, and it's 50 different states trying to do this, working with the federal government to get the doses and then get it to people. And then, within those states, everybody's setting up a plan. But even within that plan, the logistics just around the specifics of at least the Pfizer vaccine, which we know about, and there'll probably be more and different ones with the other vaccines, are really complicated. Can you walk through that a little bit?
Yeah. So just in general, we're in this unique position right now, globally, where we're developing vaccines and producing them at the same time. So, usually you would figure out if a vaccine works, start production, but we're doing it all at once in the hopes that these vaccines will work. And so this first one is particularly complicated. It requires ultra cold temperatures. So ultra cold is negative 94 degrees Fahrenheit, which is much colder than Antarctica. It's just extremely cold, and it also needs to be given in 2 doses. So you give a person the injection, they have to wait exactly 21 days and get the other one, or else it doesn't work. And then I've also heard from experts that it requires some sort of manipulation before it's being given. So something needs to be added to it, something needs to happen to it. They weren't quite sure what it was before you can give it out. So that makes distribution really complicated. And that's another reason why it's probably a good thing that frontline workers are the first to receive it, because it will go to hospitals who are more familiar with distributing that kind of thing. It's on a pallet that contains 975 doses. So there's been a lot of talk about how are we going to get this ultra cold vaccine to people, and the state has thought, okay, we could get 10 refrigerators that are ultra cold refrigerators across the state, and those will act as hubs, and then we'll send them out, and it'll be a very quick process. So as they thaw, we can get them into the arms of people quickly enough. They've also thought maybe we can send these vaccines directly to hospitals, but not every hospital has 975 employees to give the vaccine to. So there are a lot of things that we're still figuring out, and it's complicated by the fact that we don't know how many doses each state will get. They've, I think, heard anywhere between 20,000 and 100,000 doses, and each person
initially
needs
for the initial,
for the first shipment, and each person needs 2 doses, and they're not going to save any because they do expect another shipment to come quickly after that. But that's a very different situation where 20,000 and 100,000.
Right. Well, I know you're going to be writing a lot more about this. We are going to be following this very closely, probably for the next several months. So, I think there's going to be more to come. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, but we're starting to get at least some indication of what some of the things are and what this process is going to look like. So, for our readers and for our listeners, thank you very much for following along with us today. You can read more in NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, the Acadiana Advocate. And thank you for reading, and thank you for watching.
Thanks, everyone.